Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Ella. Ella was small, with shiny brown eyes and soft brown hair that she tied with a blue ribbon every morning. She loved animals, flowers, and warm sunshine. She had the sweetest laugh, and everyone who met her said, "Oh, what a lovely girl." Ella lived in a big house with her stepmother and two stepsisters, named Mina and Lila. But the house didn't feel happy. It was full of work and noise and grumpy voices. That's because Ella's stepmother didn't treat her kindly. She made Ella do all the chores. Every day, Ella had to sweep the floors, wash the dishes, make the beds, and even mop the stairs all by herself. The stepsisters never helped. Mina just brushed her hair all day and looked in the mirror saying, "I'm the prettiest." Lila tried on fancy shoes and shouted, "I should be a princess." But they never said, "Thank you," or helped Ella with anything. Still, Ella didn't complain. She woke up early each morning, tied her ribbon, and whispered to herself, "I'll do my best today." She sang little songs as she cleaned and talked to the birds that flew by her window. Her favorite was a little bluebird named Peep, who always chirped back like he understood her words. When she had a break, Ella would go outside and sit under a big tree in the garden. She loved to feel the grass under her toes and the breeze in her hair. One day, she would whisper, "Something good will happen to me. I just know it." But most days, nothing special happened. Just more sweeping, more cleaning, more, "Ella, do this," and "Ella, do that." Still, Ella smiled. She had a good heart. And even though her world was full of chores and bossy voices, she kept a little spark of hope deep inside her. She didn't know it yet, but something magical was waiting just around the corner. One sunny morning, Ella was sweeping the front steps when she heard loud voices inside the house. "Let me see it," Mina shouted. "No, I saw it first," Lila snapped. Ella peeked into the hallway, holding her broom tight. Her stepmother stood by the door, holding a shiny golden envelope. It sparkled in the sunlight like a treasure. "It's from the palace," her stepmother said, her eyes wide. "The prince is having a party at the castle." Mina and Lila squealed so loud that Ella dropped her broom. "A party?" she asked softly, stepping closer. "Can I go too?" All three of them turned and stared at her. Then, they started laughing. "You," said Lila. "At the castle? In that old dress?" Mina added, pointing at Ella's patched-up apron. Her stepmother crossed her arms. "Ella, don't be silly. You have work to do, and you don't belong at a royal ball." Ella's heart sank. She wanted to cry, but instead, she bent down and picked up her broom. For the rest of the day, the house was full of excitement, but not for Ella. Her stepsisters danced around in the hallway, trying on dresses and throwing clothes everywhere. Ella had to iron their gowns, polish their shoes, and even brush their hair. She did everything with a quiet smile, but inside, she felt a tiny ache. She looked out the window at the castle far away in the hills and whispered, "I wish I could go." That night, when everyone was asleep, Ella tiptoed to the fireplace and sat by the soft glow of the embers. She held her hands out to the warmth and hugged her knees. She looked up at the sky through the chimney and saw a single star twinkling. "Maybe," she whispered, "just maybe wishes do come true." The next morning, the house was even louder than before. "I want the pink ribbon," Mina shouted. "No, I'm wearing the pink ribbon," Lila yelled back. Ella quietly folded dresses and picked up slippers from the floor. She helped her stepsisters get ready all day. She tied bows, brushed hair, and made sure every wrinkle was gone from their fancy gowns. When the sun began to set, Mina and Lila stood in front of the mirror, spinning and giggling. "I'm going to dance with the prince," said Mina. "No, I am," said Lila. Their stepmother clapped her hands. "Hurry, girls, we must not be late." Ella walked them to the door, holding the edge of her apron. "Have fun," she said softly. Her stepmother turned and looked Ella up and down. "You didn't think you were going, did you?" she said with a cold laugh. "This party is for special people." Then the door slammed shut. Ella stood there, quiet and still. The house felt too big and too empty. The air was quiet. No footsteps, no shouting. Just the ticking of the clock on the wall. She slowly walked outside to the garden, her favorite place. The stars were just starting to twinkle in the dark blue sky. Ella sat under her favorite tree and looked up. "I know I'm not fancy," she whispered, "but I would have danced. I would have smiled. I just wanted one night of magic." Then, a soft light began to glow. Ella blinked. Was that a star falling? No, it was getting closer. It floated down like a tiny moon, glowing golden and warm. Ella gasped and stood up. Something magical was about to happen. Ella stared at the glowing light. It floated like a bubble through the garden. It sparkled like the stars, but it was warm and soft, like a hug. Then poof, the light grew brighter and brighter until, right in front of Ella, a kind old woman in a sparkly blue cloak appeared. Her hair was silver and swirled like clouds. She had a tiny wand in her hand that shimmered like ice. "Hello, dear," the woman said gently. Ella's eyes were as wide as apples. Who are you?" The woman smiled. "I'm your fairy godmother, sweet Ella. I heard your wish." Ella held her hands to her heart. "You did?" "I did," the fairy said with a twinkle in her eye. "And I think it's time you had a little magic." Ella couldn't believe it. "But I don't have a dress, or shoes, or anything fancy." The fairy waved her wand with a flick and a swish. Poof! Ella's old dress turned into a beautiful blue gown that sparkled like the stars above. Poof! Glass slippers appeared on her feet, clear and shiny like water. "Woo!" Ella whispered, spinning around. She had never felt so happy. The fairy laughed kindly. "Now, you can go to the party. But remember, dear, you must be home by midnight. When the clock strikes 12, the magic will go away." Ella nodded quickly. Yes, I'll remember." The fairy godmother pointed to the garden path. There stood a golden carriage, waiting just for Ella. Her eyes lit up like the moon. She took a deep breath. She was ready. The golden carriage rolled gently along the road, pulled by 2 strong white horses with shiny silver manes. Inside, Ella sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her heart going thump, thump, thump. She looked out the window and saw the castle getting closer. It was so big. It had tall towers that touched the stars and glowing windows that twinkled like candles. As the carriage stopped in front of the castle, Ella took a deep breath. She stepped out slowly, one glass slipper at a time. Her sparkly dress shimmered in the moonlight. People turned to look. "Who is that girl?" someone whispered. "She's beautiful," said another. Ella felt shy, but she smiled. She walked up the big steps, one by one, until she was inside. The ballroom was full of music and dancing. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, shining like rainbows. People wore fancy clothes and twirled across the floor. And then, the prince saw her. He stopped dancing. He stopped talking. He looked right at Ella. "Would you like to dance with me?" he asked kindly, holding out his hand. Ella nodded, too surprised to speak. She placed her hand in his, and they began to dance. They twirled and spun across the floor. Everyone moved aside to watch them. Ella felt like she was flying, like she was in a dream. She was so happy, she forgot all about the time. The clock was ticking, and midnight was coming soon. Ella laughed as she danced with the prince. The music was soft, and the lights above twinkled like stars. She felt happy, lighter than air, like nothing could go wrong. "You dance beautifully," the prince said. "Thank you," Ella whispered, smiling shyly. He twirled her again and again. Everyone in the room smiled and clapped. No one knew who she was, but everyone could see she was special. Then bong! A deep, loud bell rang out through the castle. Bong, bong, bong! Ella's eyes grew wide. "Oh no!" she gasped. "It's midnight! The magic was about to end." She looked at the prince. "Two have to go." "Wait, please," he called. But Ella was already running through the crowd, past the dancers, down the long hallway. As she ran down the stairs, one of her glass slippers slipped off clink and landed on the steps. But she didn't stop. She ran to the golden carriage just in time. As the clock struck 12, the magic sparkled and swirled. Poof! Her gown turned back into her plain old dress. Poof! The carriage was gone. The horses were gone. She stood in the road with bare feet and messy hair. But she was smiling, because for one night, she had danced at the castle. Back at the castle, the prince stood on the stairs holding a tiny glass slipper. It sparkled in his hand, catching the moonlight. "She's gone," he said softly. "But I must find her." He turned to his guards. "I don't know her name. I don't know where she lives. But she wore this slipper and it fits only her. I want to find her and see her smile again." The next morning, a messenger rode through the village on a big brown horse, calling out, "The prince is looking for the girl who wore the glass slipper. Every girl must try it on." Ella heard the message from the garden where she was picking flowers. Her heart skipped. Could it really be true? She ran inside to tell her stepmother, but her stepmother just laughed. "That slipper is for someone special, not for you." Still, Ella watched from the window as the prince's helper went house to house, carrying the slipper in a soft, shiny box. At each house, girls tried to squeeze their feet into the tiny shoe. Some pushed and wiggled, some huffed and puffed, but it never fit. Then, finally, the prince's helper knocked on Ella's door. The stepmother rushed to answer. "Come in, come in! My daughters are ready." Mina and Lila were already sitting with their shoes off, smiling big, fake smiles. Ella peeked around the corner, quiet as a mouse. She wanted to try the slipper. She had to try. Mina went first. She pushed and squished her foot into the glass slipper. "It fits," she lied. But the helper shook his head. "No, it does not." Then Lila tried. She wiggled and forced, her toes red from squeezing. "It fits me," she said loudly. But the helper gently said, "I'm sorry, it does not." Just as he turned to leave, Ella stepped into the room. She had her hands behind her back and her head down. "May I try?" she asked quietly. Her stepmother jumped up. "She's just the maid. She didn't go to the party." But the prince's helper looked kindly at Ella. "All girls may try." He opened the box and held out the slipper. Ella sat down and carefully slipped off her old shoe. Her foot slid into the glass slipper like it was made just for her. It fit perfectly. The room went quiet. Mina and Lila's mouths dropped open. Ella's stepmother gasped. Then Ella reached into her apron and pulled out the other glass slipper, the one she had saved from the night before. The helper's eyes lit up. "It's you! You are the girl the prince danced with." Ella smiled. A soft, happy smile. Her heart was full. The very next day, a beautiful carriage arrived outside Ella's house. This time, it wasn't made by magic, it was real, and it was from the castle. The prince himself stepped out. He wore a warm smile and held out his hand. "Ella," he said, "I've been looking for you. Will you come with me?" Ella nodded, her eyes shining. She took his hand, and together they stepped into the carriage. Her stepmother and stepsisters watched from the window with big, surprised eyes. They didn't say a word. As the carriage rolled away, Ella looked back one last time, then forward again with her heart full of joy and her spirit full of hope. When they reached the castle, everyone cheered. The prince introduced Ella to the king and queen, and they said, "Welcome, dear child." Ella didn't become fancy or forget where she came from. She stayed kind, gentle, and sweet just like always. And though she had a beautiful gown and lovely rooms in the castle, her favorite spot was still outside in the garden, where she could feel the grass under her feet and look up at the stars. And sometimes, when she saw one twinkle extra bright, she would whisper, "Thank you," because one little wish had changed her life forever. And Ella? She lived happily ever after,